just want to tell you a little bit. I'm going to take this opportunity while the bands or the judges are in the back. I've never done this way. We've always haven't done this part. We've always had a guest band while the judges were in the back, and this year we thought we'd do it a little differently. And you know, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the story, and I wanted to sink into every single person here. You did see the video, but the video did not tell the whole story. What's missing is really incredible. And I'm sure you watch all kinds of TV shows, etc. We live a murder TV show every day of our lives. It's been 10 years in January since this happened. And you heard in the video, those of you who were here, those of you who were not here, you can go to tjsgift.com, and right in the front is an 8-minute video that tells you a little bit about the story. Normally when I tell the story, it takes about 60 to 90 minutes. I'm going to do a Reader's Digest, quick version of it. And I've told this story, and Karen has told this story, to over 30,000 kids already. We've given out 30,000 of these. We're on our 30th thousand wristbands order, and I think that's, it's amazing that so many people are hearing TJ's story. And like the story said, and you saw the video, he's a normal kid. TJ was like my best friend. My friends and my family called him Floyd's mini-me. And he could sell anything. He could sell, like I can. If somebody lived in a brick house, he could sell them aluminum siding. That's just the way he was. But he got involved in drugs, and he got involved in weed, and you can talk all you want about legalization of weed or whether it's okay to do it or not. And you know what, that's not what I'm here for. We've never talked about what happens when you do a drug, etc. We only talk about choices. That's what our whole thing was about when Greg wrote that song, is choose to be drug-free. TJ didn't. And he made some real stupid decisions. And he got involved with weed, and that moved on to, I'm serious, when we were in court and we heard the witnesses say what TJ was doing. He was doing weed, he was doing crystal meth. Crystal meth is the worst possible drug there is. He was doing crack, he was doing cocaine, he was doing everything. The only thing he did not do was heroin that we know of. He did ecstasy, you name it, he did. He wasn't into prescription drugs, but he did all the other stuff. And along that way, he met a girl, only 16 years old, her name was Trista. They became best friends, they were best, absolutely, I'll have your back, you've got mine, etc. TJ trusted her with his life, and that came to haunt him. This girl chose to live with another boy who was 17 years old. His name was Sean. Sean did not like TJ at all. Sean was also dealing and using crystal meth. So was Trista, so was TJ. And TJ did not like Trista moving in with Sean. And he fought about it with Trista. He told her that he wasn't good for her, etc. But she had nowhere to live. She had a very dysfunctional family. And I did not really trust Trista myself, but you know what? TJ did, and he was good enough for me. And TJ called me on the day he was killed at the lake. And he said, Dad, I want to talk to you. And I said, absolutely. In fact, after I got off the phone, just to say, he got off the phone with his mom and had almost the identical conversation with both of us. And he apologized for all the stuff that he had done. And it wasn't that much. Like, it wasn't really anything, and we were getting along. And we had arranged that he would go to Addictions Foundation Manitoba to get into a treatment program on January the 6th. And he phoned me on January the 5th in the morning. We talked for, half an hour, 45 minutes. It was the most incredible call. And he ended both our conversations with Karen and me with love you, Dad, or love you, Mom, kisses and hugs. And now all we have of that is on the stone that you saw that we had carved at our cottage at the lake. And he got off the phone. We made arrangements to come home that night. And he said, I'll see you at 4 o'clock, love you, Dad, kisses and hugs sort of thing. We came home and TJ was not home. What had happened shortly after he got off the phone from me, Trista called him. And she said, come on over to Sean's house. Chad Hanser has a stereo he wants to sell you. And TJ was installing car stereos. And he went over to the apartment and he called Trista up and he said, Trista, I'm here. He said, send Chad down with the stereo. And she said, just a minute, Chad wants to talk to you. So they talked. And then something incredible happened. TJ got back on the phone with Trista and he said, Trista, what's going on? Something's up. Am I being set up? And this Trista, his absolutely best friend in the world that he trusted more than anyone in the world, said to him, TJ, don't be stupid. Just go buy the stereo and come back and pick me up for lunch. And he said, okay. And he said, send them down. And what had been happening in the meantime, and you heard in the video, that these 5 people got together and they were planning what was going to happen next. And Chad and Anthony got in the car. Chad was behind TJ. Anthony was beside him. Anthony was behind TJ. Chad was behind him. They're like 19 and 20 years old. Young guys, just like TJ. And they got into TJ's car. They drove south out of Winnipeg. Somewhere along the line in Pembina Highway in St. Norbert somewhere, they stopped. And TJ was severely beaten up inside the car. But that wasn't their plan to just beat him up. So Anthony, on the instructions of Sean, which they had seen a video in a movie with Val Kilmer called The Salton Sea, and they took that video and they decided they would do the same thing. And Sean and Trista had filled up 4 hypodermic needles full of Drano. Drano is an ingredient in crystal meth manufacture. And Anthony Pulsifer from the back seat injected TJ in the neck twice with Drano. He also injected in the back of one hand. We feel that that was a defensive wound. TJ fighting off. There's one thing that TJ would never do voluntarily is take a needle in his neck. He was petrified, even at 20 years old, of any needle going into his body. And you know, it didn't work. The movie wasn't correct. The movie didn't happen. The ending didn't happen. TJ was still alive. I don't know what shape he was in at that moment, but it was enough of a comatose state of some kind that Anthony actually made a phone call to Sean. And he said, Sean, what's going on? This isn't working. You told me this would work. And he isn't dead yet. What do I do? And Sean said on the phone, a 17-year-old boy, and you know what? This isn't just some street punk. His father is senior vice president of Great West Life. That's what Sean is. And Sean said, and I quote, you don't fucking kill him right now. I got a needle for you, TJ. For you, Anthony. And I'm going to get you and I'm going to get your baby. I got a needle for her too. And Anthony proceeded to take a shoelace from his runner. And he wrapped it around. Wrapped it around my son's neck. And strangled him. And not only did he strangle him, he pulled his 200-pound body over that front seat of that car into the back. Just completely unbelievable. TJ was lying in the back seat for 20 minutes as they drove south of Winnipeg. According to one of the killers who told the police later on, TJ was gurgling and gasping for breath. He was still living. They made another phone call, and the same threat happened. They pulled off onto this crazy, God-forbidden place, this gravel road where you saw the cross, where you would have never taken anybody, a dead-end road, in fact. And they pulled him out of the car, out of his own car, stripped him of almost all of his clothing at 35 below, took his jacket, took what's behind me, that Mecca hoodie Karen bought for him and gave it to him that day. That was what he was wearing that day. He was also wearing this chain that Karen had bought for his 18th birthday, and I've got it on me now. My wife can't wear jewelry anymore because TJ was strangled and it just gets to her. That's how these things happen. And you know, they took off all his clothes, threw him in 35 below, just out in the ditch in the farmer's field. Anthony made more phone calls, and he walked over to TJ and he jumped on his chest, I don't know how many times. And then he took a knife that Sean and Trista had prepared, a big butcher knife, and he jabbed it in TJ several times in the neck and in the chest. You know, I have watched 100 shows of Criminal Minds, and this is a case for something like Criminal Minds. I mean, how can someone do 4 times over and over again try to kill a human being? TJ fought for his life. He loved life. He had no concept. And you know what the biggest BS about this whole thing is? And one judge said, he just shook his head when he was sentencing Anthony Pulsifer. And he said, I have been on this bench for 20 years. I have never seen a murder that is so horrific for absolutely no reason. This was over a love triangle. It had nothing to do with crystal meth. It had nothing to do with cocaine. Absolutely, obviously that's part of the story. Everybody was into drugs, and if TJ wasn't into drugs, he wouldn't be dead. But you know, that's what happens, what drugs can do to people. Trista Hildebrand betrayed her best friend. And I don't know how she lives with herself. And I'm not going to talk about what happened to the killers. You can go on our website and find out about that. They don't occupy my life. I try to keep them out of my life, although 3 of them are in jail, 1 is not, 1's getting parole next year, etc., that sort of thing. All the details of that are on my website. But I want you to leave here today thinking, you know what, it's pretty innocent just taking that toke, doing that line, whatever. You never know what is down the road. And you know what? TJ had no concept that any of this would happen to him. None of it. We had talks and talks about it. TJ had no concept that this was even possible. I had no concept it was even possible. And so, when you have that pledge card, it's a pledge card to yourself. And that is really meaningful to us. And I think that if you want to take that home and sign it, we'd be very honored. And if you don't, that's your choice. And that's what this whole thing is about, is we have our motto, and it's choose to be drug-free. Thank you.
I hope you can see why Floyd and I are so passionate about working with kids and trying to get kids to think about what they're doing and think about what their choices they're making. I hope you guys think about the choices that you're making. There is nothing worse in the whole world than losing a child. Nothing. A spouse, a parent, a sibling. There's nothing that compares to losing a child. And for your parents to have to live the kind of life that we live now would be so horrifying. And I think when you go out and party and you have a good time, go out and party and have a good time. We all want to, but do it in a safe way. Because I don't want to hear about any of your parents living our life. TJ was a fabulous kid. He really was. He was a fabulous kid. He played 4 musical instruments, And he was just talented in so many ways. But he made some bad choices, and he depended on some people whose only joy in life was their drugs. And when people have a dedication to one thing like that so strongly, then it didn't matter. And you know what they got for killing TJ? Whatever drugs and money he had on him. We know he had $650 because he was going to buy this stereo. He probably had a couple of $1,000s on him, and he had some drugs on him. No parent wants to say that. We have to say it. Because we have to try to help you guys be safe. That's what we're all about. And that's what TJ's Gift Foundation is all about. So I hope that you will take a pledge card. And I hope that if you're not ready to sign it, you shouldn't sign it. Because that's a pledge to yourself. You don't even have to tell your parents or anybody about it. But take one and sign it when you're ready. Keep it in a safe place. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Hopefully it's not going to be a fatal mistake. But if you make a mistake, come back to it. Think about it. Make your choices so that you can be safe. Because I guarantee you, no matter how well you get along with your parents, there is nothing worse than for a parent to lose a child. So, our goal tonight, choose to be drug-free. Okay? All right, let's have our judges come up.